Good day, everybody. I hope that you are well and also hope that you are having a good day so far. Today, we'll be doing our grade 4 English lesson on adverbs. And before we start, we're going to log on to aplusstudents.ca. Once we've logged on to aplusstudents.ca with our username as well as our password, and then we're going to select the subject of English language arts. Grade 4. And then we're going to scroll down up until we get to our chapter of adverbs. All right. So we are doing adverbs. Our chapter is adverbs. Our subject is English language arts. We're doing grade 4. And the lessons that we are going to be focusing on today under the chapter of adverbs it is, does the adverb tell you how? Does it tell you where? When? Does it tell you where? Right? So we need to ask ourselves that question. Does the adverb tell us where, when, or how? Or how, when, where? Doesn't have to be in the correct order. All right. So when it comes to adverbs, right? And then we can say an adverb, it is a word that tells you more about the verb, right? So an adverb tells us more about the verb, whereas an adjective tells us more about the noun, right? So an adverb is a word that tells you more about the verb, and if it tells you more about the verb, it will tell you how something is being done, when it is being done, and where specifically it is being done or where it takes place. So some of our adverbs, right? So we said an adverb is a word that tells you about the that tells us more about the verb. We can even say it It modifies the verb, right? And it tells you how, it tells you where, and it tells you when something is taking place or when it is happening. And the adverbs that tell us how. So adverbs that tell us how, right? These adverbs, they usually end in ly. Not always, but they usually do end in ly. So adverbs that tells us how something is being done, whether it is quietly, hurriedly, excitedly, right? It tells us how something is being done. For example, how does she run? So, how does she run this race? We can say she runs quickly. So, quickly basically tells us how the person runs. And then we have some of our adverbs that tells us when. So now the question is, when does he leave? And we can say he leaves soon. So soon is our adverb that tells us when the person is going to leave. All right, and then some of our adverb tells us where. So now the question is, where do they play? And we can say they play outside. So outside is our adverb. So these are basically adverbs, right? And once again, these are adverbs that tells us either how something is being done and it ends in ly. When something is being done, right? It can either be soon, it can be later, and where somebody either plays. Outside, inside, at the park, right? All right. So now we're going to, if we look at a few more words, right? We are now going to try and look for a few examples, or few more examples of adverbs. We already identified one, which is actually three, which is quickly. Quickly is an adjective, an adverb that tells us how. And then we said when is like soon. So soon is our adverb that tells us when something is going to happen or when something takes place. It's going to be soon. And then we also have adverbs, that tells us where. And it can either be outside, it can be inside, it can be literally anywhere where we can identify where something happens. All right. And if we look at a few more examples of adverbs. All right. So sadly is an adverb, right? Sadly is an adverb, and sadly tells us, for example, how something is being done. Patiently, right? So if we first identify words, let's say with how, adverbs that tells us how, then we can say it is secretly, slowly, quietly, strongly, right? That is but a few examples of words that ended in ly, right? And these are adverbs that tells us how. Secretly, slowly, rightfully, yes, rightfully, wonderful, rightfully, joyfully, that is correct, right? These are words that tells us how something is being done. And we say that ends in ly, right? Because now we need to ask ourselves, how did somebody do something like this? They did it secretly. He drove slowly. He moved quietly, right? He did something joyfully and excitedly, right? Now we're going on to the next one, when. And over here we said when is soon, can even be now, can be yesterday, can be already, can be then. We already said now, soon, we said already, can be later, right? And then our other words, like for example, words like tonight, tomorrow, in the week, and so on. These are adverbs that tells us when. And then we have adverbs that tells us where. And adverbs that tells us where, it's like saying it is far, it is near, there, or we can say here. inside. There we have outside. You can even say everywhere, right? Yes, tomorrow we can put here by adverb that tells us when. Well done. So everywhere, we can even say above or away. These are adverbs that tells us where, right? So for example, where is this place? Oh, this place is very far. Or the place is near. The place is over there. No, it's over here. It is inside or outside, everywhere or elsewhere. Above, below, away. Those are examples of adverbs, right? That either tells us how. All right. So now we're going to aplusstudents.ca and we are going to go over adverbs, right? And we said our chapter is adverbs. And the lesson is, does the adverb tell you how? Does it tell you when or where? And identify adverbs. All right, so now we're going on to it says we need to identify, or we need to say if the adverb tells us how, does it tell us when, or does it tell us where? Sorry. So the first one says, my dad weeds the garden weekly. My dad weeds the garden weekly. We need to say, does it tell you when or does it tell you where? So weekly, does it tell us when or does it tell us where? All right, then if we were to identify if it's either telling us when or where, then we can say my dad weeds the garden weekly. So now the question is, how often does the dad weed the garden? So we can say weekly. So which means that this is when, right? All right. So now we're going on to the next one. It says the wind blew fiercely. The wind blew fiercely. Look at the word fiercely. Does it tell us how? Does it tell us when? Or does it tell us where? All right, yes. And if we were to say what kind of adverb it is, we can say this is an adverb that tells us how, right? How did the wind blow? It blew fiercely. So well done. All right. So now we're going on to the next one. Read it quickly. It says Mr. Allen travels everywhere. Mr. Allen travels everywhere. All right. And if we were to say Ellen travels everywhere. And if we were to look at the adverb, we can say it's adverb of that tells us where, because it is everywhere. All right, so now we're going to our test where we're going to say, does the adverb tell us either how, when, or where? All right, so now it says, look at the adverb in italics, right? Does it tell you how or does it tell you where? The question is, or the sentence is, the fog crept everywhere. So that word everywhere, does it tell us how or does it tell us where? All right, so we said everywhere tells us where. All right, where is option 2? Now we say the wind blew fiercely. Is it how or is it where? Fiercely. Look at the word fiercely. Does it tell us how or does it tell us where? The wind blew fiercely. So fiercely. Does it tell us how? Option 1, or does it tell us where? Option 2. All right, and you can say the wind blew fiercely. Right, so how did the wind blow? The wind blew fiercely. So well done. Option 1 is correct. And we can say Shauna's friend Nolan moved away. So the word away, does it tell us when or does it tell us where? Option 1 or option 2? When or where? All right, so we can say Shauna's friend Nolan moved away. Does this tell us when or does it tell us where? Option 1 or option 2? And if we were to tell us, we will say it is where. So he's moving away. Where is he moving to? Away, just away. Molly quickly chose a book. So the word quickly, does it tell us how or does it tell us where? All right. So now we can say Molly quickly chose a book. So the word quickly does tell us how or does tell us where? So we can say Molly quickly chose a book. So quickly tells us how. Yes, how is correct. The crew digs underground. The crew digs underground. Does it tell us how he digs underground or where? All right, so we can say that the crew digs underground. So now the question is, where does the crew dig? So where is our correct option? That is why we say underground, outside, inside. Those are all options that tells us where. Gently clean the cat. Gently doesn't tell us how we need to clean the cat or where we need to clean the cat. All right, so we can say gently clean the cat, and then we say that is adverbs that tells us how. Gently. How must I do it? Gently. All right. Let's look at the last one. We need to look at the adverbs in italics. All right. And then lastly, we say Clayton finished last. Does it tell us when he finished or where he finishes? All right, so we can say Clayton finished last. Right, so if we look at the word last, then it's like, when did he finish? He finished last. So well done. Option one is correct. Right. So now we're going on to the next lesson, which is to identify the adverbs. So we're going to identify the adverbs now, and we said an adverb is a word that tells you more about the verb, and it tells us how something is being done, when it's being done, and where. And we said some adverbs tells us how, it ends with ly, right? And it tells us how something is being done. Some advice tells us where, right? Inside, outside, etc. And some tells us when. Today, lately, sometimes, now, tomorrow, right? Those are just an explanation of what adverbs are. All right, so now we're going on to the next one that says, a baby cried somewhere. We need to select the adverb that tells you about the verb in bold. So, cried. We need to select the adverb that tells us about the verb in bold. All right. And if we were to identify our adverb, we would say somewhere, right? Here it says Laura's band performs soon. Laura's band performs soon. And if we were to identify our adverb within that sentence, we would say it is soon, right? So soon, we have somewhere, everywhere, right? And if we look at the next one, it says Jill's friend Kenneth moved away. What is our adverb within that sentence? Jill's friend Kenneth moved away. All right, so we can say Jill's friend Kenneth moved away. So away is our adverb, right? All right, so now we're going to our test where we are going to identify adverbs. It says supplies were shipped. It was shipped south, right? So we need to select the adverb that tells us the verb within the verb that tells about the verb in bold. We need to either say where or how the supplies were shipped. So supplies were shipped south. So do we say supplies or do we say south? Which one is correct? Supplies or south? And if we were to select our option, we would say south, because now it's either it's going south, it's going north, it's going west, it's going east, right? It's going in a direction and it's going south. So well done. It's telling us where it's going to. All right, the next one says Laura now imagines her future. Laura now imagines her future. We need to select our adverb. All right, and if we were to choose the correct one, so Laura now imagines her future, so we can say now, right? And that tells us when. All right. So we went over adverbs. We went over adverbs. You said adverbs, it is a word that tells us more about the verb. We have adverbs that tells us how, that tells us where, and that tells us when. Adverbs that tells us how, they end with an ly, like hurriedly, softly, quietly, right? Then we have adverbs that tell us where. It can be anywhere. South, north, here, there. And then adverbs that also tell us when. When can be now, tomorrow, or so on. Right? So those are adverbs. So once again, adverbs that tell us more about the verb. So now thank you very much, grade fours for joining the class, and I really hope you're going to have a good weekend further. All right, so till next time, goodbye.